What's up guys, welcome to Munchkins Gaming, where we take your gaming to the next level. This is Munchkins logging in to bring you another Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia video. And welcome back to another video guide. In today's video is going to be on Aranea's second coming event for the global version, and of course it's going to be on her Lufenia fight. But before we do start, like and subscribe if you haven't already, because it does help the channel and I would really appreciate it. So without further ado, let's start this video. Alright guys, so let's start this off as always on how to deal with the Lufenia orb. The Lufenia orb starts at 100% HP of the boss and will actually cancel out once you hit below 80% and will reappear once you hit less than 50% of their HP. Their Lufenia orb counter increases by 2 whenever the target takes a critical brave damage. So honestly, any character can do this. It's probably one of the easiest Lufenia orb counter to achieve. I mean, it's basically you just need to attack, and the chances of hitting a critical brave is really high if the enemy is broken. So as long as the enemies are broken, you're sort of like guaranteed to hit like a critical brave. So as long as you can do that, then you should be fine. And honestly, it's not that hard to find characters that can instant break the enemies, but if you can't, there are other ways to do it as well, and we'll be going through that a little bit later. So before we go through that, let's see how this fight works. Now, the bosses actually have a lot of brave damage reduction here. A lot of their skills revolve around reducing your brave damage to them, making it hard for you to actually break them. But like I said, there are a lot of ways to do this, and we'll be talking about that later. The bosses do love using their brave plus HP attack. They are also immune to paralysis once again, but there are other ways to make them unable to move, and again we'll be going through that a little bit later. Ramu is still able to paralyze them, even though they are able to well, they're not resistant, they are immune to paralysis. You can still use Ramu's paralysis there. They are also able to absorb pretty much all the elements except for the thunder element, so just be careful bringing characters that have elemental attacks. Alright, so now let's take a look in how you're gonna deal with this fight. Like I said earlier, we'll be going through a lot of ways to deal with this fight. So instant breaks are very important because the bosses actually gain a massive amount of braves every time they finish their turn. So characters like Ramza, Lightning, or Aranea are ideal in these situations. However, if you do not have characters that can instant break, the other way to do this is to launch using Keys. Keys is actually one of the characters that can reduce the enemy's brave down to 0 if you use his brave attack while the enemy is launched. So that's another way to deal with this mechanic, and that way they will have 0 brave and then you can break them. Then you can start dealing like critical brave damage, right? Another character I actually forgot to insert here is Gabronth. Gabronth can instant break as well. So these characters are going to be very helpful to bring along. One other thing in this particular fight is actually use your delay mechanics quite early in the fight. I noticed when the enemies hit less than 80%, they actually use a move called like charge something. I can't remember. Energy charge, that's it. So basically this allows them to have some sort of like this weird little thing in the turn order around their icon, which basically makes them immune to delay. So if you can delay them quite early, that will be really great. That means you'll have a lot more room to play around with, but you can still delay them by re-breaking. So again, characters that can re-break are probably the most ideal, you know, characters to bring along, or characters that can instant break because of the massive brave that the enemies get. And the last thing that I would really say about how to deal with this fight is actually applying debuffs. This may be something, you know, is pretty common sense, but I believe some people tend to forget using your Cole characters that can debuffs, that can give debuffs, are very important in these particular fights, especially moving forward with Lufenia fights. These are very, very important, and of course if you can buff yourself to increase your attacks, that would be really, really great as well. Okay guys, so now let's take a look at some of the characters that I would recommend bringing. Again, there are so many characters, so these are just some of the characters that I kind of like thought of. So Emperor obviously is there. Arciela is one of the characters that I mentioned earlier that can sort of use a paralysis or make the boss unable to act, because like I said, they like using their Brave plus HP attacks. So if you can apply that debuff and make sure it stays there, the HP silence. Even Kefka can do this as well, even though I didn't put him there. The thing with Kefka is he does cover all of the debuff slots, so just have to be a little bit careful there. Yeah, and El Narshe is another one that can do this with terror. So basically, I mentioned this in the previous video, if you are using El Narshe, if you have like Celeste as your call on him, that way the enemies will attack El Narshe and obviously take advantage of that terror. Jack, you know, his debuff is really great. He's a good call character, but you can bring him as a main character here as well. Krile, Aranea, Ramza, Lightning, Squall, anything that you can really think of, as long as they don't do multiple like elemental attacks apart from Thunder, you should really be fine to bring these characters along. Now going through the call characters, I already mentioned Jack being one of the best ones to bring along. Ramza is still pretty great. Hope, if you're using like magic attacks, really great again. Caius, just be a little bit careful with this one, as he covers a lot of the debuff slots. Cloud is okay. Machina, Gabranth, again, just be careful with how many debuffs you are applying, especially if you want to take advantage of Ramuh's paralysis. If you already have all the slots filled up, yeah, it's just not gonna work. And now let's move on to some of my party compositions recommendations. So the one that you guys are seeing right now is Emperor, Aranea, and Aerith. I got lucky with Aranea's LD and got it on the free pool. Thank God. I managed to get some luck back after that Celeste fiasco. But yeah, it's honestly, the luck's been okay for the last two banners. I got Aerith in like 20 tickets as well, so hopefully the luck keeps rolling in. Anyway, call team for this one, Jack, Keese, and Ramza, and I got an Emperor for my support. You can have Ramza here as well, it doesn't really matter much. Summon here is going to be Ramuh, of course. Next up is my double bay party composition, which is Lightning and Aranea. And I've got Arciela here just in case you need that HP silence. I think Aranea and Lightning are enough to, like, you know, do re-breaks and turn shenanigans and stuff like that early on. But in case you do need a little bit of paralysis, or I guess not paralysis, or HP silence, it's gonna work really well. Cole team Jack, Hope, and Krile, Ramza for support, and of course Ramuh for the summon. The last team I have for you guys is going to be Cloud, Keese, and Aerith. This is going to be a launch team. It still can work. You got Jack, Ramza, and Krile for the Cole team. Support Ramza and summon for Ramuh for your summon. Basically, the idea here is if you do need that break really, really badly, Keese can do that during a launch. So this takes this requires a little bit more precision, but it can work. But you know, it's probably one of the least ones that I would really suggest, because I think the re-break mechanic is, or the instant break mechanic is actually easier to achieve. So yeah, just be a little bit careful, and like I said, try to delay as early as you can, and you know, then you should be able to at least get through this no problem at all. Alright guys, so we're finally at the end of this video. So my final thoughts on this fight. Now, I mentioned El Narshe's Lost Chapter on my previous video, probably the easiest Lufenia because you can cheese it. This is going to belong in that category. I didn't really have any issues with this Lufenia fight, and the Lufenia orb counter is pretty easy to achieve as long as you have the instant break mechanic pat down. If you have those characters like I mentioned before, then it's so much easier to achieve that. And again, if you have re-breaks, that can cover you for like the delay later on in the fight, because unfortunately the bosses will have some sort of immune, well, not some sort, they will have a delay immunity, so a re-break still works. You can delay them using that. So a very, they try to make it hard because of all the brave reduction that the bosses have, but to me it wasn't that hard to achieve, like critical hits, right? And again, there are some other ways that I actually forgot to mention, probably noteworthy. I don't know how the characters are going to work because I never tried them myself. Like, for example, like Balthier can steal the brave. That makes it easier for you to break the enemies. Yuffie can do sort of the same thing as well. I think I've seen a Balthier composition that actually managed to beat this Lufenia fight. Yeah, but I don't remember the exact team. I'm guessing they have some sort of re-break anyway, like Aranea or Lightning that can cover for Balthier. But yeah, Balthier can steal the brave and make it easier for you to break the enemies. So that's another way to do it that I actually forgot to mention. But I think that is pretty much it. I don't think you'll have much issues with this meeting the Lufenia orb counter in this particular fight. And with that in mind, leave a like and subscribe and share this video if you find it helpful at all, or if you have a friend who is struggling. Hopefully this can help them. It doesn't take that long to hit that like button and subscribe, and it would really help this channel, and I would really appreciate it, guys. Not leave a like. You can also follow me on Twitter and on Facebook at Munchkins Gaming. Leave down in the comments below which team you use for this fight. Let me know down there. This is Munchkins logging off. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next level.